So this has been something that's been on the radar for some time. We know and we have known for quite some time that people have wanted to see James Gunn cast Jason Momoa in the role of Lobo. And even before James Gunn was hired to be the co-head of DC, with DC Studios and Peter Safran, people have been trying to cast Jason Momoa as Lobo, like the iconic Superman villain. And it seems on the surface like a pretty damn good fit because like Jason Momoa, like you put some white paint on his face and some black makeup around his eyes, and you even like what he usually dresses up like to the set of a movie, he will look like Lobo to you. And if you go by the live action iteration we saw in Krypton, and then you just slap Jason Momoa's face on there, it's a pretty good fit. And we now have some hints from this recent Variety article that kind of mentions briefly. Um, we don't know how true it is or whether this is actually going to happen or not, but we sort of are of the understanding that Jason Momoa has entered talks to potentially be cast as Lobo in the new DCU, where his character, and if that happens, where he would show up, whether it's in Superman Legacy or future project, whether it's a solo project or a crossover, or just as the villain or anti-hero in another project. It is very possible, certainly now more than ever, that Jason Momoa could be indeed playing Lobo in the live action DCU. But my question to you is, for somebody who's been playing Aquaman for the better part of a decade now, he has been in the Justice League movies, whether it's the theatrical version or the Zack Snyder's version on HBO Max, or whether it's in his own movie franchise. He's now, after the end of this year, going to have led two Aquaman movies, one of which made $1 billion. The second one, who knows how much it's going to make. It could make close to it. Like, it's coming out in Christmas time without a lot of competition. So it's very possible it could be just as successful or even close to being as successful as the first one. So to go from playing this iconic, like Aquaman is one of the, top five, six, seven characters you associate with DC and the Justice League, to playing like a villain, like granted an iconic villain of the Superman pantheon, but a villain nonetheless that in a lot of previous iterations, whether it may be like a villain that kind of crosses paths with Superman every so often, or in the live action iteration that we saw, he was, it wasn't really like the big villain that, like, he wasn't at the Brainiac level, he wasn't at that, like, General Zod level. So I get the sense that for someone like Jason Momoa, wouldn't this be a downgrade to go from playing Aquaman to playing Lobo? And like how many appearances would he even make? Like, unless they make him like the Loki of the DCU. Like, what do you think? Wouldn't this be a downgrade for Jason Momoa to go from playing Aquaman to playing Lobo?
I think, I mean, if you, I mean, technically, yes. Technically. Because Aquaman is part of the Justice League now because of Jason Momoa's performance as the character. He has slowly become iconic. Maybe not Batman or Superman levels or even Wonder Woman levels, but he kind of slowly got out of the, jokey Super Friends characterization he was known as
You take
for
Aquaman
decades.
seriously now. It's
Yeah, like,
even
yeah,
the
that's sort
comic
of
book
thing.
iterations, like the way they draw his character in the comics now, is sort of adapted to the Jason Momoa
Right.
version of the character.
But but that's on a technical scale because he is going from a very well-known character, partly because of his own performance, to someone who's not as well known with, as you said, the only live action iteration we've gotten was in Krypton. Don't get me wrong, a very great iteration because I thought the actor whose name is escaping me, I can't remember his name, but he did a very good job in the role. It is technically, however, with how perfect, and I mean perfect, Jason Momoa would be for the role, I think that would kind of tip the scales in terms of not being a downgrade because I think he would be up there with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in terms of how perfect he would be for the Lobo role, just from look, just from personality, just from performance, just from the way he dresses. I mean, Fast X pretty much. was like halfway there anyway in terms of how Lobo dresses. Maybe not as crazily, but even then, like just like halfway there, I think that would outweigh that because so many people, so many people have wanted him for Lobo even before Aquaman was a glimmer in Zack Snyder's eye in terms of the BVS cameo. I think he would just be too perfect, and I think a lot of people would grapple onto that in terms of big comic book fans, and I think there would be sort of this shift that Lobo would be slowly become this more popular character. How they would do that, I don't know. I've always been someone who genuinely believes that he should be DC's version of Deadpool. Yes, Ambush Bug in terms of the meta-ness would probably be better, but in terms of the, hard R 80 satire of 80s excess, like guy who doesn't shut up, he would be so brilliant instead of, Harley Quinn, but that's beside the point. Um, he and whether that they go villain or more anti-hero like Deadpool has become in later years, I think it would be awesome. I think that would be really cool. And I don't think it would be like the biggest shift in terms of downgrade. Now, if the I think personally a real downgrade would be like, "Oh, you've played Aquaman for so long. Now you're going to be playing Bullet Man." Like, something that someone so unknown that nobody cares. The fact that so many people have fan casted him, so many people want to see him in the role, I don't think it would technically count as a downgrade in terms of how good he would be. But that's just my opinion, of course.
And look, those are all valid points because that's really a lot. Those are a lot of the reasons why people have been anxious to see him play the character of Lobo. And to be quite honest, I would agree with the fact that hey, we could very much see him on that trajectory where look, and I will make that Loki comparison because I in my mind that kind of like lines up well. Loki in the comics, like he's obviously like the stepbrother or half brother of Thor, and this sort of it's like an ongoing character. It's not a character that shows up once and then gets killed off. And in the movies and in the MCU and in his own TV series, they've sort of kind of set him up to be that kind of character who's gonna stick around. He's sort of had multiple redemption arcs at this point. He went from being a villain to being an anti-hero to being a straight up hero at this point in his own show. And it's but it's, as a character, I don't think Loki was necessarily as well known or as clamored for before like Tom Hiddleston took on the mantle, especially in the first Avengers movie. And I can definitely see that kind of trajectory for Lobo, like a character, or even like an Iron Man. Iron Man was like a B-list character. The reason
Yeah,
why Marvel even had rights to the character when they made that movie in 2008 is because it wasn't one of the more popular characters that they sold the rights off to, like
right.
Spider-Man and the X-Men or the Fantastic Four in the 90s when they were like almost bankrupt. So to me, like I look at this situation and I think this is an opportunity that they could take advantage of, and there's
Hmm.
much like Aquaman, like much like Jason Momoa with Aquaman, sort of revolutionized the image of that character, which I think a lot of props to Zack Snyder for making that casting decision in the first place. Because it's not like Jason Momoa walked on and said, "Hey, man, I could totally play this role," and Zack Snyder was like, "Sure, man, go ahead." And I'm sure they went through a process, and Zack Snyder had a very particular vision in his mind, and he was like, "You are the right fit for this." So yeah, props to Snyder for like doing that work, and I think in a lot of ways changing the reputation of Aquaman as a character, and now maybe that previous casting of Jason Momoa as Aquaman might inform who gets cast as Aquaman in the DCU, if not Jason Momoa himself, because of course we don't know yet officially whether that's going to happen or not. Although we know that James Gunn has said that nobody's going to be playing two characters at once in the DCU. They're not going to do
Right.
that. He explicitly said that. And then Jason Momoa has said on a couple of occasions that he'll always be Aquaman. And then even the post-credit scene of The Flash, that's I think the second post-credit scene of The Flash, or no, the first one, I think it was. I'm confusing like whichever. There were multiple post credit scenes, and one of them, like you see Jason Momoa's like Aquaman is sort of Arthur is drunk and getting pulled out and like basically dragged on the sidewalk by Ezra Miller's Flash. And he's like, in every universe like that, it's like the Batman was like a somebody different. Like he looked different, and it was a different person. But like everywhere I went, like I was the Flash, and like you seem to be Aquaman. So and we know that that scene was kind of put in pretty late in the game. So I don't know if that's meant to be a hint as to say that even though it's a new DCU, that Aquaman is still going to be Jason Momoa, but or Jason Momoa is still going to be Aquaman. Who knows? But if I was James Gunn, I would definitely give a pretty good look and a long, hard look at Jason Momoa as potentially Lobo. Whether that happens in Superman Legacy or whether that happens in a solo Lobo movie or in whatever other capacity, whether you start him off in an animated appearance, whether it's in Creature Commandos or some other show or animated
Mhm.
project that they work on. I would love to see Jason Momoa take on the role. I personally really like his Aquaman, and I would love for him to continue to play that Aquaman, whether it's
Yeah.
same actor but different canon, even. But it's not like I would be entirely disappointed to see him as Lobo, because Lobo is a character that's got a lot of potential, a character that I think has been, you know, criminally underused in the DC pantheon of late. And I actually, I kind of to this day regret that they canceled that show Krypton. I was like, that should have been a
Oh,
show that they
yeah.
should have like brought. I don't know, maybe it was a rights issue or whatever, but they should have brought that over to DC Universe or HBO Max and been like, let's give it more time, because I think that show only got better as it went along. So yeah, guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Is it a downgrade for Jason Momoa? Is it indeed a downgrade to go from playing a Justice League character, one of the most iconic, superhero, like the more famous
Mhm.
version of the water related superhero? He's certainly more famous than Namor, the Submariner. So is it a downgrade for Jason Momoa to go from playing Aquaman to playing Lobo? Or is it like potentially a sideways move at best, and maybe even a promotion, because Jason Momoa could, much like he did with Aquaman, take Lobo to new heights, and of course fulfill a fan casting that's been out there for at this point more than a decade, even before he took on the mantle of Aquaman. Let us know in the comments, guys. What do you think? And of course, like and subscribe for more content like this. We're here each and every day talking about the DCU and all the other DC related topics, whether it's movie reviews, previews, box office analysis, breaking news reactions, and all that and so much more, all things DC.